Kirschner, not here yet. Commissioner Momsen,
Here.
Commissioner Small,
Present.
Commissioner Alioto,
Here.
Chair Hagstrom.
Here.
Thank you.
We missed.
Sorry, I thought I went with you first.
Here.
Thank you. Commissioner Schleling.
Okay, so that concludes the roll call, and now we'll ask the city staff if they have anything to report. City staff, do you have any, is there a staff report? Okay, well,
Do you want to do approval of the agenda?
approval of the agenda. Okay,
So this is where if anyone has changes to the agenda, they can ask that something gets pulled or, and then you'll need a motion to approve.
okay. So we have today is a special meeting. We have an agenda. There are items shown on our special meeting agenda. Does the commission have any comments on the agenda, or will we accept the agenda as written? Do we do a show of hands or eyes? Okay, so we'll accept the agenda based on a roll call.
Point of order. Is this also approving the minutes, or is that a separate?
The minutes are separate, that's an item separately. This is just approving of the agenda as it's presented.
Is all motion to approve the current agenda?
The motion is to approve the current agenda.
And I second.
Thank you. Okay.
Commissioner Emerson,
Yes.
Commissioner Kirschner,
Yes.
Commissioner Momsen,
Yes.
Commissioner Small, Commissioner Alioto,
Yes.
Vice Chair Schleling,
Yes.
Chair Hagstrom.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion carries.
Are there any public comments or questions on Zoom? Okay, so we'll bring back the meeting to the commission for discussion, and we'll look to the agenda. So we've reached out. There are no comments from the public. We'll move on to item number 2, the regular calendar, city council. 2.1, receive the minutes of the February 28th, 2003. Have the minutes been approved?
I so move.
Okay.
I second.
So moving to item 2.2, discussion, consideration, and possible action regarding the
Chair
form.
Hagstrom, you
Yes.
need a roll call on the motion.
A roll call for the acceptance of the minutes.
Commissioner Emerson,
Yes.
Commissioner Kirschner,
Yes.
Commissioner Momsen,
Yes.
Commissioner Small,
Yes.
Commissioner Alioto,
Yes.
Vice Chair Schleling,
Yes.
and Chair Hagstrom.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion carries.
Okay. So then moving right along, 2.2, discussion, consideration, and possible action regarding the formation of an ad hoc committee for the temporary art program and the Vintage Festival annual poster contest. We have a ad hoc committee. Is there some comments that the ad hoc committee would like to make regarding this agenda item?
Actually, Chair Hagstrom, can I do the staff report?
I'm sorry.
Oh, no worries. So the item before you tonight is there are 2 additional projects that have come before the commission. One of those is the temporary art program, which we've had the 2 now presentations, be starting with Meyer Johnson, your 2022 treasure artist, and then now the schools here, the students, the local students from Adele Harrison, Altamira Middle School, Sonoma High School, and Creekside High School. At this point, the artwork is going to remain up a little bit longer, obviously, just because of some changeover in where we're at right now. One of the things that we are looking for is an ad hoc committee of the commission to put the framework for the program going forward, and creating a policy to formalize that program so that it can continue. It's not going to be just a, couple of times and then go away, but it is something that the mayor and the council would like to continue forward. So we will be asking for the commission to look at possibly assigning an ad hoc committee to work on that. The other item is kind of it's a really fun one. It's the Vintage Festival poster project. The Sonoma Valley Vintners and Growers approached city staff regarding the Vintage Festival annual poster contest. The Vintage Festival serves as a celebration of the great bounty, community spirit, and rich community history. It's been an annual event for 124 years. They have asked the commission to develop a community art contest to create the 2023 poster. This contest would ideally include community participation in the selection of the winner of the poster. And this is another one that we are asking for you to consider appointing an ad hoc committee. The reason for this is due to the restrictions of the Brown Act. It makes it very difficult for the entire commission to work on these types of projects. We've seen this with our treasure artist and possibly with student artists. We'll see how that one comes forward. But the ask tonight is for the formation of 2 ad hoc committees if the commission would like to see that go forward, or if you would like to have it brought back to a meeting and look at that as a whole. So.
Okay, thank you. Am I mistaken that we did not form an ad hoc committee for the vintage poster?
No.
No?
We haven't
Okay.
considered this one yet.
Okay,
We did for the treasure artist.
okay,
We were going to, but last meeting we didn't have a quorum.
correct, okay. So, at this point in the meeting, then we would discuss the formation of an ad hoc committee for those 2 programs, the temporary art program, that's art here in the chambers, and an ad hoc committee for the annual Vintage Festival poster. So, starting with the temporary art program, well, first, does the commission have any suggestions on forming or comments on forming these committees?
I've overseen with Rebecca's considerable help the last 2. And so I sort of know what's going on now in terms of the space. But as you know, art can be a little political at times, and it's pretty important to be very inclusive and fair as we do these kinds of endeavors. So I think that it's important to be thoughtful as we think about rotation and who to include and thematically what we might do. There's been some kind of cool ideas for the next one or the next 2. But I think that having a team of people that really crafts this thoughtfully and fairly is super important for the creative community.
Okay, yes, Deb?
Are we looking to create one ad hoc committee for both?
Yeah, I would
Whatever.
think that we'd had 2 separate,
Oh, 2,
and if we decide that the same people would be on each, but they'd be 2 separate ad hoc committees. Any other questions from the commission?
I have a question.
Yes, Lauren?
Are there any guidelines set in place for how many of us need to be on an ad hoc committee for it to be valid, or if there's a minimum or max?
There is a maximum. You can't have a quorum. It has to be less than a quorum. So, because you actually have, now you have full membership. Your Councilmember Ding's appointment, Scott Van Wagner wasn't able to be here tonight, and then the alternate Meredith Knudsen was not able to be here tonight. So you'll have, with that, you have 10, so you can have basically 4.
And 4 is the maximum. Because 5 would be even. So it has to be less than half. Okay. Any questions about forming a quorum?
So
Okay.
would this, the ad hoc committee would be selecting kind of the artist, like the flow of it, kind of putting the guidelines in place on how we're gonna be doing this?
I would say it's selection and also installation.
Right, and it's also formalizing a policy. It's
Yeah.
actually providing a document that has guidelines, the framework for the program, because the last 2 have gone really well, but they've really just been kind of as we went. So now we have the agreement in place, or it's a temporary artist, what did we finally end up calling it? We have those little pieces are in place now, so it's really formalizing that process.
Okay, I guess my next question on, I guess regarding the Vintage Festival one, with the Vintage Festival team, would there be outside, is there somebody from the organizing folks of the Vintage Festival that would be involved in this process at all, or are they just putting it in our hands?
I'm gonna look to Lisa because she was working with them.
So that's a really great question, and I think that we could probably get at least one board member, or we could have, and maybe invite Laura McGilly from the Vintners and Growers Alliance to help us with this. But I would think that we could probably get some participation from them. It was kind of outside of their skill set.
Okay. So any other questions within the commission about forming these ad hoc committees before we decide who might want to volunteer for these committees? Yes, Lauren?
With the Vintage Festival contest, is it something that they've been doing for a long time, but now they want us to do it? Like, is there structure in place, or is it starting from scratch?
So there was a structure in place for many years, but that was under the old management of the Vintage Festival. So back in, I think it was 2022, last year, was the first year that the Sonoma Valley Vintners and Growers Alliance took over the management of that event. And the reason why was it just aligns really well with their mission. So we have a new organization that's managing this event. I think it's in the 134th year. So there's been many poster contests in previous years, and so we could build on that. I could probably reach out to the past event organizer and get us some background and some history on that, and maybe even invite them to come in and present to you on how it was done in the past. So you don't have to start from scratch. But with this new organization, they felt that this would be a project that this commission could definitely assist in developing. So.
Yes, Deb?
A couple of questions on the temporary art program. I can't remember all the schools that you had listed that the committee would be working with. Could you list those again?
They did. These are the schools that did this.
Oh, but it
thing.
could
That's-
be all
that-
schools.
Not
in our-
necessarily that are gonna be coming up again.
Okay. And then do we think that this committee could also be working with the temporary art exhibits that we have on the plaza from time to time as well?
I think that's a lovely idea. We don't really have a policy yet for our temporary outdoor art. So I think that there's probably a larger discussion that maybe we bring back another request for another ad hoc subcommittee, because I think that's a bigger policy discussion with a lot of impacts, and it might actually align nicely with some of the work that Creative Bridges, Connie, has already started to lay the foundation for. So I would suggest that maybe we don't necessarily piggyback it off this one, but keep it as one extra unless Connie feels otherwise, so.
I think that by doing this beginning show, the mayor's show or the chamber show, it probably would behoove us to reach out to a lot of arts organizations to be asking for their advice. And in that step, I think that it's kind of the first step for other thoughts along that line. So this is dipping our toe in, and I think it'll be really helpful. Tomorrow, there's a group that of a number of arts organizations in Sonoma Valley that are starting the discussion again about the art walk, and so that will be tomorrow morning. So that's also something that is happening. I think we're going to be kind of in the middle of some action.
Okay. So I would like my discussion point is about the Vintage Fair or Festival poster, and that it will not, I guess the framework could be, give us your proposals public and we would see 20 applications of different designs, or we would select a certain artist that, you know, could provide that service. How has it been in the past? Is it people submitting their ideas, or we just select an artist?
So I don't have a huge amount of background on this subject matter, but I do believe people would submit original artwork, and then it'd be digitalized and used for once it was submitted and voted on, it was a community vote, then it would be used if it was chosen for the annual poster. But the poster goes back many, many years. I think I have
So
them back
that's
from the 70s.
And this would be the first time that the Cultural and Fine Arts Commission was involved with it,
Right.
so we don't have a history with it.
But the word contest is specific. This is a contest, and we'll look for applicants and we will judge based on the merit of the applicants. Okay. Does anyone have a question about the contest concept? Okay. So with any other discussions from the public about these two formations of an ad hoc committee? Well, with that said, I'm sorry, next to me.
I think that it's kind of cool that they asked for the Cultural and Fine Arts Commission to be involved in selecting or helping to select the poster, because it shows they're wanting to elevate and go to people that care about the aesthetics. So even though it's more work for us and one more thing to do, I think it's a really valid thing to do, and I think it's an honor that the community sees the commission that way.
Yes, Deb?
One more question. If we select the committees today, are we able to add a person provided we don't go over that amount? And I'm asking because we don't have two commissioners here tonight. Maybe we would choose to select 3 for each and give those 2 commissioners the opportunity to serve on one of them if they'd want. That's the only reason I brought that up.
And remember, your alternate does not sit unless someone on the regular commission isn't here. And just looking at it, it would be, you could do no more than 4 on your
Right.
commission, on your ad hoc committees.
What is the date that the Vintage Festival poster will be in use?
Well, these are all the logistics that we need to work out. And so the timeline will be part of the policy
But
and
is
the
it-
selection criteria and what needs to be, well, there'll have to be a discussion with the Vintage Festival organizers to develop what needs to be included on those posters, the dates. Yes, yes, September 29th. Now I have to check it.
And another question, do we know when the current temporary art program will come down?
I think it's up until we figure out the next one.
Okay.
And I think it's okay with the students. I mean, there may be some pieces missing if they need them for their portfolio.
I just wanted to clarify the Vintage Festival's on the 30th.
Okay, thank you. Okay, any other questions from the commission regarding forming an ad hoc committee for the temporary art program and the Vintage Festival poster contest? Does staff have any other comments? Okay.
Not unless you have any additional questions. And just one thing I think that you could, I think it would actually be a really good use of that ad hoc committee to add in the temporary art, not just in here, but on the plaza as well when we do have those asks.
To add that language to the framework?
To possibly, that ad hoc committee would possibly look at the temporary art, not just in here, but in the, add that to the framework, yes, add that to the policy, maybe a more far-reaching temporary art policy.
Like limited to the council chambers, but not, or including the chambers, but not limited to, including potential, sculptures in the plaza, et cetera. Okay, well, that adds to the scope of the ad hoc committee, for sure. So maybe with, a show of hands, we can ask our commissioners who would like to volunteer for the ad hoc committee, and we'll start with the temporary art program. So with a show of hands, we have Connie Schlalin, we have Deb Emerson, and we have Mario Alioto. So student. Okay. And we could start with 3, we can always add a 4th. As long as it is not over 4. Yes, Connie?
I'd like to clarify too, this isn't a student show. It's an art
Temporary.
show, so it could be coming, for instance, we've been discussing possibly having an Earth Day photography show next, or a photography show from a variety of people in the community, or possibly different rotations of arts groups. So, but we will, as an ad hoc, try to figure out what a good way to do that is.
And I think the framework would be whether we decide to have it be local, Sonoma Valley, or within this, the body's purview, or if a group from San Francisco wanted to come in, that would be up to the ad hoc committee and the merits, or is it limited to Sonoma Valley?
Well, that's not been decided yet, but it's not up to the ad hoc committee. Anything that the ad hoc committees work on, they don't have the ability to approve something unless the commission as a whole votes to say, we'll just go with what. But I would say no, bring it back. You're going to bring the policy or the framework back to the commission as a whole for review and approval. And one of the things too, just as something else in looking at that framework, some of the questions, some background on when the first one that we did and the second one, both, there were questions on, can we put sculptures up? Can we put, and there are some limitations, and that's all got to be looked at in that framework.
Okay, clear. So we have, go ahead.
Can I be on that? ad hoc?
Okay. So Morgan has volunteered to be on the ad hoc committee as well. So we have 4 people maximum. And now we'll jump to the next ad hoc committee, which is the annual poster contest. And with a show of hands, we have Commissioner Lauren Kirschner, Commissioner Small, Commissioner Hagstrom. Okay, and that's 3 people on, and wait, Mario?
Could I be on both, or is it just one?
Yeah.
Sure, I guess I'll be on both then.
Okay. And Mario Alioto. Okay. So does anyone have any questions about the members who have volunteered for these ad hoc committees? Yes, Devin?
If I remember, Rebecca, did you say earlier that Mario is a non-voting member?
Yes.
So,
He can participate, he just can't make motions in second or vote, but he can participate in an ad hoc.
okay, would we be able to have another member joining or not?
That's a question I'm gonna have to ask the city attorney.
Okay, thank you.
And it's my understanding that we're just talking about the ad hoc committees are making recommendations and creating some policy and framework, and that those recommendations and framework will come back to the commission and they will be voted on by the voting members. Okay.
Yeah, and Deb, if it turns out that Scott or somebody else was interested in that thing, I'd be willing to give up my spot, yeah, just to, if they had their heart set on it. But I'm a big-time poster collector, so it's kind of in my wheelhouse.
Great.
I mean, since I volunteered for both, I can, I'll be more than happy to get off the poster one if that person would really enjoy to be on the poster committee.
Well, it sounds like the attendees of the ad hoc committees have some flexibility, and if there are changes made, we'll notify the commission at the next meeting. Okay. Does anyone have any other questions about the ad hoc committees and these 2 projects? Are there any comments from city staff?
Only that we'll be in touch with those members, because in particularly, well, both of them really need to get started as soon as possible.
Are there any comments from the public on Zoom? Okay, well, that would conclude agenda item 2.2, the discussion and consideration. So we'll move to item 2.3, discussion, consideration, and possible action regarding commission meeting dates and times. And so the basis of this is just to have regular scheduled meetings that we can all plan on that are consistent with a calendar, like the 3rd Thursday. And city staff, do you have some recommendations on those dates?
Well, after we went back from the last meeting, the February meeting, the commission decided to go to monthly meetings. In talking with the city manager and other city staff, that's not consistent with the other non-quasi judicial meetings. They meet quarterly. And also due to staff's workload, a meeting monthly is a lot. So when we had discussed this with the city manager and Lisa and myself, we were looking at a couple of different options. One, going to quarterly regular meetings, which would be consistent with the other commissions, other than the Planning Commission and the Design Review. Or if that wasn't feasible, then we could do bi-monthly meetings, which you could meet in every other month as opposed to monthly. One problem that we are having when I was looking at the use of this room, because we now have 9 bodies that meet in here, the council meets twice. And so there's not a lot of options for a monthly meeting in this space. I actually was looking through it, and because of those quarterly meetings of the other commissions, it's really difficult to find one day. I know at the last meeting we had talked about that basically Mondays were open, and that didn't work for some of you. The only other day we had talked about the second Tuesday, and in going back and talking with the staff person for the design review, they actually meet on the second Tuesdays of every month. So that's actually not an option. They have been doing some special meetings and they had changed their calendar around, but their set time is the second Tuesday. So you're every month. Yeah, every month. Planning Commission meets in here every month. The design review meets in here every month. The council meets twice a month. The hospital meets once a month. Like I said, we have 9 bodies. So the one day that I saw was actually the third Tuesday. And one of the problems that we're having with that is PROS is having multiple special meetings right now. And so they've actually taken that third Tuesday for a special meeting for April, May, and then I think their regular meetings in June. So that's what we're trying to figure out, is how to get this room for on a monthly basis. And also with the ad hoc committees, that would give if you went to even a bi-monthly meeting, that would give the ad hoc committees some time to work. With the understanding that if there needed to be a special meeting of the commission can be called at any time within 24 hours notice. So if there was something that the ad hoc committee said, oh, we need to do this, then you could schedule that. Or you can also schedule additional regular meetings if need be.
Okay, and it's also been decided that we cannot have Zoom meetings anymore?
No, you cannot have
Okay.
Zoom meetings.
Good. And this third Tuesday would start in what month?
Well, that depends on what the commission decides as far as their timing. I just was looking at the PROS committee. Is it PROS or is it CAC? It's not on their agenda. They asked me to schedule it. It's either PROS or CAC. It's Mike.
Mike is pros.
Yeah. So they are having their, look at the calendar for this room. I had a whole chart done, but it doesn't tell me when their special meetings are, so. Let me go in. You have this room for, actually, no, we're gonna have to have them in the EOC. Because the design review has this room on in May. So you'll have your meeting in May on May 9th, which we already set for the interviews. And we'll have to hold those in the EOC for the interviews because this room has the design review in it. And unfortunately, my calendar is not coming up to see when that special third Tuesday is.
What is EOC?
It's the Emergency Operations Center. It's actually on the opposite side, diagonal straight across from the PD. It's in the back of the police department. We used to meet there regularly.
Okay.
There aren't microphones there.
Who?
Okay. So 2 things happened there. Was we've confirmed that the interview meeting for the student award will happen on Tuesday, May 9th. And the second is that we're still trying to work out the details on a regular quarterly meeting, with the idea that perhaps the third Tuesday would work after a certain period of time. And am I to understand that perhaps we could know that by May 9th? Okay. Yes, Deb, Commissioner Deb?
Could we discuss as a commission if we think it's what we should do? Should we try to look for quarterly or should we try to do every other month?
I think some of the objections that city clerk has mentioned about staff time and availability doesn't really put us in much of a driving seat, in the driver's seat, to decide when our meetings should occur. I think we really have to take our guidance from our city clerk.
And that is definitely a commission's decision. We've presented what, where we're at, and that's a recommendation, request. But it's really up to the commission. If the commission has business that they need to do with every month, it's just, again, it's not consistent with the other commissions.
Well, yes, Connie?
Are we dependent completely on this room? We ran our meetings before, but they were public.
When the council made all the changes where all the commissions were taped or to be recorded and streamed, it was that they would be held in this room. So there are going to be times when we'll be in the EOC, like in the May 9th meeting, but for the regularity is in this room, yes.
Is it possible to be off-site but still record? For instance, the school district has this capability as well.
No, we have to, in order to stream from our system, we have to be here. And that includes Zoom, and all meetings.
Yes, Deb?
Do the meetings all have to take place in the evenings? And that may be our availability as well, but I didn't know about staff time, if that's a requirement for the meetings to be in the evening.
No, the municipal code doesn't say a time. Consistency is 6 o'clock, but if the commission wants to do, I know at one point we had talked about 5:30, and if you want to do an evening, a daytime, I don't know how that would be received, honestly, just because people are working, and if they can't get to a meeting because it's during the middle of the day for members of the public, I don't have an answer for that, Deb. I can take it back and see what the city manager and the council think.
Go ahead.
It might be worth our time to at least discuss as a commission, is a 4 o'clock meeting or a 4:30 meeting or a 5 o'clock meeting possible if there's all these scheduling issues. And it sounds like the options that we should be looking at are every other month or once a quarter, if I'm hearing correctly. So perhaps we should discuss that.
Yes. Connie?
I think that since I've been on the commission for a while, I've seen us scrambling sometimes to try to keep up with, be ahead of the events or the things we're supposed to plan, which makes me nervous to think about quarterly. But it also is important to look at standing things we've got going on because we don't have that many events. And trying to start to work on being more proactive in being ready for them. And I think we've done a better job lately, but still it's nice to be ahead of the curve a little bit. It feels to me like there's enough work to be done for a bi-monthly, and I'm available any time of the day, but we have students and teachers and people that work, so I'm open. I can meet anytime.
I'd like to add that we do have ad hoc committees, and those ad hoc committees can make recommendations and create policies and frameworks and then bring them to city staff to and ask for a special meeting. So that might be a safeguard against not having, enough time. Maybe we just allow our ad hoc committees to do the work and bring them to us under a special meeting based on availability. It might be a Wednesday, it might be a Friday. So that's like maybe a plan B. Yes, Lauren?
Well, I'm wondering that if we did decide on quarterly meetings, we could just be more organized in the way that we work on the projects we have. So like quarter one, we would know that we were doing the treasure artist and the student artist. Quarter two, we knew we were doing the Vintage Festival poster. And then if we needed to meet in between, that we could. I'm just thinking of everyone's commitments and availability.
Yeah, and I think that could be an agenda item to, create, meetings centered around the projects that we have, and that be discussed and approved at the commission level. And then that's something that we could work with for, future years. Yeah, I like that idea. But at this point, we're trying to determine if we can get on the third Tuesday once the other meeting is over. And does anyone have any concerns about the third Tuesday? Would that be a conflict to the members of the commission? So, Lauren?
Monthly? Are
No, quarterly.
Oh, okay. I am in agreement with that.
So, maybe, does anyone have any hardships with meeting quarterly on the third Tuesday? No. Does anyone have any comments about the idea of asking city clerk to pencil us in on the third Thursday of each quarter? Third Tuesday, sorry, thank you.
It looks like the second Thursday might also be available.
Okay.
Sorry, all of these meetings are still trying to get their regular meetings scheduled. And so it's trying to find a puzzle piece to find a date that works.
Can we take this discussion item and table it? Oh, sorry, go ahead, Connie.
Well, the farmer's market is Tuesdays, and so for one of our staff members, that's a lot of the year.
Yeah.
And that was one of my hesitancies with it. And we also need to finish talking about time of day, I think, and make sure that everybody is good with time we're meeting. But I think that Tuesday is tough.
And noted that we're only talking about a quarterly commitment, and it wouldn't be every month, so it would be minimal.
But if the second Thursday was open.
Yeah. But if the second Thursday was available, that would be better than the third Tuesday. Does anyone on the commission have an issue with the second Thursday if we were to meet quarterly? Okay, no. Would the commission agree to have this as an agenda item for our May 9th meeting before our interviews? And then, so May 9th is our interview. We could use that time to discuss this quarterly meeting idea and firm up the date and the beginning time of either the third Tuesday or the second Thursday.
Why don't, if I can make a suggestion, why don't at that meeting, I'll bring a actual calendar that has those dates, what it would look like plugged in, the third Tuesday or the second Thursday. And with the possibility that maybe if a second Thursday isn't available, that we move it to the third Tuesday. Does that work?
Mhm.
That is a great solution.
That works. Okay.
And then,
Yes, Deb?
And maybe looking at November or December or January, it seems to get kind of busy then. maybe we did want to do every other month or something during those times.
Remember, you can call a special meeting anytime you need to. So if there's something going on, usually we do have more special meetings when it gets close to the treasure artist time. So that can be done at any time. These are just the meetings that you're gonna say, I'm gonna make sure these are on my calendar. I'll have it for the year. That's where we're going with this. But again, you can always call special meetings.
Okay, yes, Morgan?
As far as time, it would be hard for me to do anything before 5.
Yeah, and I agree with that. So we like the 6 PM time slot on a consistent basis. Okay, so it's then agreed that we will, yes, yeah, Mario?
Just making sure the second Thursday, and if not, the third Tuesday.
Yes, and we will,
We'll go through the actual calendar next
yeah,
and dial in those particulars.
I'll bring those dates at the May 9th meeting, and we can get them set.
okay. And so when we schedule our interviews, we want to allow for at least a 10-minute period of time to go over those dates, have some discussion before our first interview arrives. If that's okay, rather than do it at the end. Okay. Does anyone have any questions or comments about discussing the dates of consistent meetings moving forward at our next meeting on May 9th? Are there any city staff comments, any Zoom questions? Okay. So that will conclude that agenda item, item 2.3. So now moving to item 2.4, consideration, discussion, and possible action regarding the 2023 Creative Student Artist Award. So this is the point where we will discuss the applicants and determine how we will select the applicants that would be scheduled for the May 9th interview. Connie, do you have a question?
I had a comment. Because the last ad hoc committee for the student artists created rubrics for selecting the student artist, a lot of our commissioners don't have that or don't know about it. So I think that that's an important piece as we go through that, because we did define some criteria and a few guidelines. So I was thinking, because we don't have that, that it might be good to make sure that everyone has the rubrics and then has some time to go through them, because it does take a while. And while we're wanting this to be done on April 28th, I think that's the deadline that we were talking about. That would give everyone 3 days to work with the rubric, look over things, score it, send it in, perhaps to an ad hoc committee.
Right. So, any questions? Yes, Deb?
Are we able to do that, given that this is an agendized item?
Yeah, you can choose to not take action on this item and to schedule a meeting before the May 9th, because you would need to schedule a meeting before May 9th to select those students. And then we can send an email to all of the students and let them know it's going to be delayed if you don't have that done before the 28th.
Okay. Go ahead, Connie.
Is it possible to create an ad hoc that would just collect the results, and then we could use that to interview students. Collect the numbers because they would be scored.
Sorry, I'm trying to think of how that would work. So everyone would take the rubrics, return them, and then you would take the scores and say those are the three?
It's a suggestion.
Without discussing them as a commission, correct?
I'm just trying to avoid having another meeting, but maybe we really need to have a special meeting. Or maybe we're prepared tonight to discuss it without the rubrics and that sort of thing.
Do we have the rubrics anywhere?
They aren't locatable? Didn't know that. Okay.
So for those that don't know what we're talking about, a rubrics is a formulaic approach to the student awards based on the criteria, whether it's dance or art or music or literature. There are highlights
I have them.
I
that
can,
are scored in a numerical, 0 to 9 or 1 to 10. And then the idea would be that those numbers would be tallied, and
I just found them in
Yep.
email or Google Doc. That's why it wasn't coming up. Well, I mean, if the commission would like, what we can do is I can put those up on the screen, the rubrics, if you guys want to talk through them. Or if you want, we can just send them out to everyone, and the commission, you can use those rubrics to score the different individuals, and then we can come back.
yeah, I think it's good to have a discussion about the rubrics while we're here in committee. So can you bring up the ideas? Yes, you have a comment?
From what I remember, and I think the importance of using the rubric is that we're thorough and it really does take some time. I don't think we're supposing that we would do that here right now. So what are our other options? It sounds like we would have to just postpone the interview date and maybe meet next week. Is that on the table?
Well, yeah, I'm not sure about postponing. I think the sort of the bigger question is, how do we assign a numerical number to an artist and have it be transferable to a videographer? It's either you scored a 9 as an artist, but that may not generate the same number in the video rubric section. Yes, Connie?
And I agree. I think that the rubric really starts the discussion. It doesn't end the discussion. But it really helps people to understand the criteria that the students were given, because we did put that in their applications that would be judged on those things. So, and we were looking for those things, so it would be only fair to make sure we do that. Should we go through it all tonight? I think everyone can do it themselves.
I think it would be helpful, especially we have some new people that haven't been involved in that process, to at least talk about the rubrics and not necessarily the individual artist and how they would fit, but make sure we're all comfortable with what we're supposed to be reviewing in their applications and how it would apply to a rubrics.
Okay. And so with that, I think our city clerk will be bringing up on our screens various pages or a page of a rubrics, and then we can look at it together and just describe it. Yes, Connie?
And since we don't have many of these categories entered, we can skip them. We don't have dance, we don't have theater. There's a number, we don't have music at all. So really, they're mainly visual arts at this point, media, visual arts that have been entered. So that makes it fairly clean. photography, all visual.
While we're waiting, what's the April 28th deadline that was being talked about?
That was the date that we were going to notify the students that were selected to be interviewed.
So I guess my next question is legally, are we able to do that by then?
Well, that gives us 3 days to use the rubrics to generate numbers that are objective, that would say these, the top 3 scorers would be invited to interviews. And I think that's what we're trying to get to, rather than debate the merits of each individual artists in this forum.
So it's okay for us to send the numbers to
Well, the idea was we would have an ad hoc committee formed to sort of scrub those numbers and make recommendations based on the math of the rubrics. And it's just, the question is, does the categories, will they translate into a numerical number? And because they were developed separately, they may not. Yes, Deb?
And would an ad hoc have time to take all of that in and meet before the 28th and report back to you?
The only problem with an ad hoc group at this point is you're going to have a Brown Act violation, because now you've got everyone on the commission having input into the decision without it being an open meeting.
So is the solution, we likely need to schedule another meeting before the 28th to discuss?
The other, the option is to select the 3 candidates that would be invited to the interviews today, based on what we know. Yes?
And is it decided that it's 3 candidates? I
No,
don't think so, right?
no, that's just,
Well, that's what I was gonna ask. There's only, 6 or 7, 8 entries.
Mm-hmm.
It's a bit, but we could interview them all and just decide May 9th.
I think the candidates are pretty strong, and it might behoove us to just invite them all.
Wow, good idea. Does city staff have any questions or concerns about interviewing all candidates?
Not at all. That's what we did in the past. That would solve the issue of the rubric and the special session, which is working. For some reason, my password's not working on any of my systems right now, so I can't even log in to pull it.
Okay. Yes, Deb?
Well, I would make a motion that we select all applicants for an interview on May 9th.
And we have a second. Does city staff have any comments about the nomination and second of, and are there any comments from the public via Zoom? Yes, Deb?
And then if we could open it for discussion amongst us as well.
Okay. So do the commissioners have any comments or questions about opening up the application, opening up the interviews to all applicants? Yes, Deb?
Would we do 20-minute interviews, 25-minute interviews? And what time should we start? So maybe we need to kind of look at our time availability as well to ensure that all the students have equal time.
Well, if we need to also use at least 10 minutes to discuss the quarterly meeting concept, and then allowing maybe 2 hours for interviews, that would perhaps allow 15 minutes per candidate. That meeting would be pushing 2.5 hours. Is that something everyone can manage? Is 15 minutes enough time per candidate? I'm seeing a lot of yeses. How do you feel about
I was
that?
thinking I think we've done 15 in the past, and then we kind of used a few minutes after to talk. So it really was kind of like they were 20-minute increments. That's what I recalled that we've done for multiple years.
Do we have a budget for coffee?
I have just a quick question. I just want to clarify that the applicant Genevieve Smith has 2 submissions. Are they 2 different?
One is visual, is video, and one is visual arts. They're
And it's the same
separate.
student, though. Okay. So would she be interviewed twice? 2 20 minutes? It would one? Okay.
I wouldn't interview her twice. I would just interview her once.
For both.
So that would add another, so the concept of discussions in between meetings would add another 40 minutes to the meeting, which would then approach a 3-hour meeting period for discussions, interviews, and the 15-minute discussion or 10-minute discussion time about the quarterly. So does the commission and city staff agree to the May 9th meeting starting at 6 p.m., perhaps ending at 9 p.m.? Yes, Deb?
Perhaps it's possible we could start a little earlier if the commission was all available and staff was available, maybe 5 or 5:30 potentially.
I think that's a good idea for that day, because you're also asking students on a school night to be here at 9 o'clock.
Mm-hmm.
And I would recommend then the other item that we need to cover to be after the student interviews.
Okay. So the idea, yes, Connie?
I'm not clear on the timeline. We said 15-minute interviews and then 5 between. Is that what we were talking about?
Approximately, yeah.
Okay. And the other thought I had is that the last time we came up with a series of kind of standard questions, so we tried to keep it fairly fair, so that we weren't randomly asking him things. We kind of had a set, unless we wanted to do a follow-up, which I thought worked pretty good last time.
Right. And I think those questions came to fruition during the preamble before the interviews.
Right.
So if we can come together in the meeting with, concepts of what questions we would want to ask, and then assign those questions to the commission, that Connie will be asking these questions, I'll be asking those questions. So that should be part of the meeting's framework, to identify questions and assign those questions. So each candidate gets the same question posed by the same commissioner.
So can I ask that each commissioner come up with a question and send those to staff ahead of time? Because what's going to happen if you do it in that format, you're not going to have written questions to ask. Everyone's going to be like, oh, well, which one, what are we saying, who's got, does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. So city clerk is asking that each commissioner, yes, Connie?
I think we have these somewhere. And I just started to look in my Google Drive, but I think we have these questions, not that they're perfect or we have to use them, but they give us a starting place. I can dig for them.
I think I just might have found them. So there was a total of 6 questions, and it started with, if you were to win the award, how would it impact you and your future goals? The second question was, what inspires you? The third question is, what motivated the pieces that you submitted, and which one was your favorite? The fourth question was, did the pandemic impact your work, and if so, how? Because it was during the pandemic. And question 5, what are you currently working on? And question 6, is there anything you would like to share with us?
I also think a lot of them wrote about what inspires them in their write-up, so it seems like we didn't read their statement if we asked them that question.
Yes, Deb?
And I think it's perfectly fine to maybe just have 4 or 5 questions, and before each interview, we can pick which commissioner is going to ask. I don't think we need 7 or 8 questions, because then it may feel very rushed for them.
And is it decided that we would eliminate the question about the COVID?
I think the COVID and the what inspires
Take
you.
the-
But I do like the question of what motivated you for a specific piece, and tell us about your favorite.
Maybe instead of favorite, oh, sorry. What do you think is your strongest piece and why?
Nice.
I do
Yes,
agree
yes.
that taking out the question about the pandemic makes sense, but I did want to note that the pandemic did influence some of this, actually. It came up in quite a few of them.
I think they answered it. How did the pandemic influence you? Oh, well, I wrote that in my artist statement. Did you read it?
You know, and we do have 8 candidates, so we do want to have each of them move along within a 15-minute time period. So maybe asking what is now 4 questions still allows us to get to know the candidates and allows some time for us to discuss their qualifications after the interview. Yes, Connie?
We have one person we're only interviewing once, though, so isn't that 7?
No, that's 8.
Oh, it's still 8, okay. Sorry.
Okay. So where we're at here right now is we've just really decided as a commission to not use the rubrics necessarily as the framework to select candidates. Rather, we would like to interview all the candidates on May 9th. The discussion came up about changing the time to perhaps 5 o'clock. Would that work for all of our commissioners and city staff first? City staff, so 5 p.m. Commissioners, yes, Deb?
Well, I wanted to clarify when you said we wouldn't use the rubric to decide who we would interview, but I believe the intent is we would still be using the rubric in our final.
We'll send them out to everyone tomorrow.
It just wouldn't be used to define the finalists, since all 8 will be considered finalists. Yes. Go ahead.
So deciding would be based off of the rubric and the interview? All right.
Rubrics would perhaps be used maybe over the course of the following week as you're looking at the drive with all of the exhibits to make some notes, sort of judge the submissions accordingly. But then the final judging on the 9th will be the interview involved.
Yes, Connie?
And again, we created the rubrics so that we could give students guidelines for what we were looking for. And they're based upon the art standards. So we wanted them to be very aware of that we were looking for quality issues. And so, but as we use the rubrics, they're obviously just a guideline. It's important to continue to refine this process. And I think as we do this process, it's become better since I've been on, having things in the Google Drive. It's not perfect yet, but it's, you know, kids are used to using Google Drives and uploading things. And so I like the streamlining we've done. We need to continue to look at improving it and always with an eye to do that.
Okay. Yes, Deb?
And will that take place here or over there?
It'll be in the EOC because this room has a meeting in it.
Okay. And again, back to the commission, does anyone have a problem with meeting at 5 p.m. on May 9th? None. So we'll remove the question about the pandemic, remove the question about what inspired you. We will discuss those parameters before we start the interview process. We will assign or allow or allot 15 minutes per candidate and another 5 minutes for discussions. And after the interview process, we will take up the idea of quarterly meetings based on new calendar information.
Do you, with only having 4 questions, do you think you'll still need 15 minutes and 5, or do you think 10 minutes and then 5 would be sufficient? I'm not trying to rush, I'm just curious.
I think it gives time for follow-up questions, because we always had follow-up questions for every artist.
Yeah, go
I
ahead.
think it's good to schedule 15. I don't want, it's like 10 minutes. It's like, do they even care? And then if it is shorter, great. If not, they have the time.
And I think having a little extra time allows people and their schedules to, and us to be flexible if people are running a little bit late, or if those discussions after the interview stretch out a little longer beyond 5 minutes. But yes, Connie?
There were two things that occurred last time that I think are worth considering, and that is, luckily, because Pat Meyer Johnson was our treasure artist and also involved with Arts Guild and Sonoma Plein Air, she arranged for the student art artist to show at Arts Guild, and Sonoma Plein Air actually paid for that show. And it was a really nice touch. We might even think in the ad hoc group, if it is a visual artist that we pick instead of a video artist, it might be interesting to have them have a chamber show, because it would be a logical step if they wanted to. The other thing that sort of concerns me with the award is that many times the student the school doesn't know that they've gotten the award, and often in high schools they have awards assemblies, and we've missed the deadlines for those in the past. I think it would be wonderful if the city could give that award in front of their peers and honor that student. So I don't know when, I think they're all from Sonoma High. So I don't know when that awards assembly is, but it might be worth checking.
If the winner is a senior, that we could note it on the graduation literature that goes out to all the families that attend the graduation, because there is a cash prize associated, and they have little symbols that denote different awards that the kids have won, whether they're scholarships or awards. That might be another avenue for just notification. But it's sounding like we want to notify them a little earlier than graduation.
Do you go to Sonoma Valley High?
Yes, I do.
Could you do some investigating for us to find out when the awards assembly is, just in case?
We just had our last rally a couple of weeks back.
For the seniors, for scholarships and.
Oh, that I do not know, but I'll be more than happy to investigate that. Yeah.
That'd be great. We have an inside
Okay.
email.
Okay. All right, so with this agenda item 2.4, I think we've decided, again, that we will interview all candidates. We will assign each candidate a 15-minute time slot. City staff will reach out to each candidate and assign the candidate in order of, I don't know, alphabetical order, or I don't know how you determine, but that'll be worked out by city staff. City staff will email the rubrics out to each commissioner to use between now and May 9th to fine tune their own understanding of the process, as well as assigning some numbers just for their own purposes. And then we'll have approximately 3 hours to get through this special meeting on May 9th to conduct the interviews, and a little time left over to talk about the quarterly meeting schedule. Does anyone have any comments or questions about what we plan on doing on May 9th and the time we've decided to spend? Okay. Does city staff have any comments or questions about the May 9th agenda? Any Zoom questions coming in? Okay. Then I'll conclude item 2.4. And I think that concludes our agenda item. Deb, do you have a question?
Oh, no, I did have something for agenda item 3.
Okay, so we'll move to agenda item 3, commissioners' reports and comments. So,
I just would like to have our newest commissioner introduce himself and for everyone to welcome him, and maybe tell us a little bit about yourself or why you wanted to get involved in this commission. We're very happy to have you here.
Thank you so much. So hi, my name is Mario Alioto. I've been invested in the arts, whether it's dancing, acting, for 13 plus years of my life. I'm currently 16 and a junior at the high school and doing advanced drama and everything as well. And I was really interested in this commission because, I'm very invested into the arts. So I wanted to help out the people of Sonoma, especially people that, even just go to my high school or, get their voices heard, And I think I'm just very happy to be here as well, just helping this wonderful cause.
Is your mom a dance teacher?
Yes, she is.
I think Morgan and I just spent Friday with her, working on with Creative Bridges.
Okay. Any other comments from the commission? Well, I'd like to thank everybody for volunteering for the ad hoc committees. That's an important part of this commission, and we all want to participate, and that's an easy way for us to get a lot of work done without having commission meetings. Item 4 is city staff comments and announcements. Are there anything that you'd like to bring forward?
Don't have anything for this
Yes.
evening.
Deb?
I have an announcement as on Friday from 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. Sonoma Clean Power, the local electricity company, is hosting an art exhibit of local artists from Sonoma Valley at their business in Santa Rosa. So if anyone wants to come, just go to the website, sonomacleanpower.org, and you can RSVP. It's complimentary, and we have 10 artists that will be displayed, and then we're going to run the exhibit for the next 5 months, but the opening is this Friday.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. Well, with that, I think we will adjourn our meeting. We'll gavel out.